All right, good morning. My name is Jeff here at the National Weather Service office. I'm in Wakefield, Virginia. I got quite a bit to cover today. Before we get started, I kind of wanted to just throw out there we have been changing things up a little bit here and there, and just want to make sure everybody is aware that we send these email briefings out on Monday and Thursday. We'll also send them out, like we'll send out an update tomorrow morning because of the severe weather risk on Friday and Saturday. So anytime we have a risk, we'll always send one out in the morning, kind of updating what's going on. But we are updating these briefings every morning, even though we're not emailing them out. We are updating them every single morning at 9 a.m. And then we'll do a quick refresh by about 3:30 just to see if there's anything that needs to be tweaked. And so we'll kind of just take a quick look at it. But at 9 a.m. every morning, our briefings get a full update with all the new information in there, even though we may not be emailing it out. And you can go to the website there. I was on the screen, or you can just go to the Wakefield webpage. And when you scroll down here, you can go to our briefing interface here. And when you go to the briefing interface, you'll see the link here to the full weather briefing. And so right here, it's updated, every day by at least about 9. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to post. It could lag and not post here till 9:30, but definitely by between 9 and 9:30, this link will update every single day. So want to make sure folks are aware of that and that it's kind of a living briefing now. And we always email it out Monday and Thursday. And if there's a threat of severe weather, but then otherwise it's updated every single day and posted online. So something we started doing here about a week ago, making sure that it's always a live kind of living briefing. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. There is a lot going on. So currently just kind of see what's going on the satellite. You just got a lot of high clouds, maybe even a few mid clouds out there. So the sun's peeking through in some areas, but you can kind of see some pretty good cloud cover here across much of the region. And you see a lot of clouds streaming from the Gulf across the southeast U.S. and kind of coming our way. So really probably going to be a mostly cloudy day with maybe an occasional thinning of the clouds. We get to see some sunshine. Looking at the big picture, rainfall wise of what's currently going on, you can kind of see there's a few little scattered showers here kind of west of our forecast area there, kind of just east of the mountains and the Piedmont. But you can see the bigger area of precipitation is really down across parts of South Carolina and especially into Georgia and Mississippi. And I got kind of mentioned that now because this stuff is going to lift north through the day today and kind of clip especially southern and southeast Virginia and northeast North Carolina. So this is the area that will be moving up here really later today and especially tonight. And so I kind of wanted to show that it already has a pretty good area of showers, way to the southwest. That's going to lift to the northeast. And we'll talk more about that as we go. So really getting right into it, it is a really active weather pattern. We had a cold front, we have a warm front to the south that's going to be lifting north. Here it is, the weather map here for Thursday. But then by the time we get into tomorrow, really later tonight, this warm front is going to lift north and kind of get up maybe north of the Maryland Eastern Shore, or maybe up towards DC. At the same time, we're going to have a cold front starting to push in from the west. And this is the weather map from Friday morning. So Friday, we're all going to get into what we call the warm sector. Probably going to be a mix of sun and clouds, going to heat up a little bit. And all of that right ahead of this cold front. And that cold front is going to really push through here Friday evening, bring us a pretty good chance of some showers and maybe even some severe storms. But then that front blows off the coast really quickly. You see here by Saturday morning, that cold front is way offshore. And we have a secondary cold front starting to come down by Saturday morning. That pushes through. You get some decent winds, especially on the marine. We'll talk about that, late Friday night into early Saturday morning with kind of this 1-2 shot of the cold fronts moving through. And then, when that moves through, you get another weaker front coming through on Sunday, but that's going to be dry. It shouldn't be too windy. And then just in time for early next week, we're going to have high pressure building in for most of the area. Maybe a weak little area of low pressure forms along the coast and skirts offshore there on Monday, but that should not be a big weather maker for us. So really unsettled today, tomorrow, and Saturday. I think Sunday is going to be a little bit better day, probably the best day here going into the weekend. So we'll get right into this and kind of walk through what's going to be happening. So as far as the heavy rainfall outlook is concerned, it's really going to be more like this evening and especially overnight tonight. We do have a marginal risk of heavy rain and potential flooding really across a good bit of central and south central Virginia, all of southeast Virginia, and really northeast North Carolina as well. you might be able to, say that even up towards parts of Melfa, Accomack might be able to get into a little bit of this as well. But this is where the risk of the heavier rain is for later today and tonight, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like on the radar in a minute. For tomorrow on Friday, there is a slight risk now, so a little bit higher risk of some heavy rain and potential flash flooding across northern Virginia. That does come down to almost Ashland, not quite, but it's just north of Richmond. And so we'll see that this may get extended a little bit further to the south and east. We are really wet. Folks have seen a lot of rainfall here over the last several days. So, and this is a pretty potent system coming through on Friday. So this could get extended a little bit further south into the Tri-Cities, and it might even start to clip into a Maryland Eastern Shore. So we'll see about that for that higher risk of potential heavy rainfall and flooding. The marginal risk really kind of goes from Emporia, maybe up here towards about Isle of Wight, Hampton, and covers Eastern Shore. And even this marginal risk might get extended a little bit further to the southeast. And honestly, I think Southeast Virginia and even Northeast North Carolina probably has just as much of a risk of some heavy rain and flash flooding tomorrow as let's say, places up towards Richmond and Petersburg. So we're going to have to kind of watch out for that and see what the heavy rainfall potential is here for Friday. Saturday, there's going to be some showers and storms coming through. They should be pretty fast moving, and they should be pretty quick to come through. So as far as the risk of, excessive rainfall and flooding, Saturday's probably not as much of a risk, but tonight, for the rush hour tomorrow, and then especially again on Friday, that's where we're going to have to watch out for some heavy rainfall and potential flooding, and we'll step through that. And there's also a severe weather risk. So for today, and really this is getting into more this evening and tonight, the risk is really kind of just north of the North Carolina-Virginia border and down into northeast North Carolina. And this is a pretty low risk. Maybe we get a thunderstorm or two. Maybe you get a strong wind gust. But the risk today is really not that significant. I'd say that the rain threat is probably better for tonight than what the severe weather risk is as far as tonight is concerned. For Friday could be kind of an interesting day. Much of the area is on a slight risk right now for severe weather. It's not quite to Elizabeth City, but Elizabeth City, Norfolk is kind of on the eastern edge of it. Richmond is in the slight risk, kind of comes around here to Louisa. And I'll show you guys what the radar might look like here in a minute. And these could be some pretty potent storms coming through. They could be kind of clusters of storms or line of storms coming through Friday afternoon with some pretty good sized hail, maybe some pretty strong damaging winds, and can't rule out an isolated tornado. So I'll show you that as well. The slight risk could get extended a little bit further to the east, maybe kind of get more all the way over to the bay. It may start to encompass a little bit more of Hampton Roads. It just depends upon the time of day that this stuff comes through. If it can come through a little bit earlier in the evening, that slight risk is probably going to extend all the way to the coast. If the storms can hold off in Hampton Roads till about 9 o'clock, then maybe we get lucky. But honestly, the way the wind rushes down the James and the York River, I would still expect a lot of wind here over parts of Hampton Roads as those storms come through, and you'll see how potent those storms are. Same thing down here with Elizabeth City. So be careful with that. Of course, everybody else in the green is in a marginal risk, but I think the slight risk really honestly could cover most of our forecast area all the way to the coast and the bay. So we'll watch for later updates. Saturday, still another risk for a wave of thunderstorms coming through. These will probably be hailers if we do see severe weather Saturday with some gusty winds. And I'll show you what that might look like there on Saturday. And that's, again, more defined towards Saturday afternoon. Rainfall-wise, could see quite a bit of rain. Anywhere from an inch to an inch and a half of rain across the area. Most people will probably get about a half inch to an inch. Some places even more. Down here in Hampton Roads, some places might get about 2.5 to 3 inches of rain. Wouldn't shock me between now and let's say Saturday. Kind of showing the timing of the rainfall. Really maybe a few little places pick up some rainfall this afternoon, but it's really geared towards late afternoon and really into this evening where you see some of these higher rainfall totals possible, where folks might be able to get a quarter to a half inch of rain, mainly this evening. Less rainfall accumulation really overnight tonight, and then Friday, especially once you get past about 2 o'clock and you start to get to, let's say, 4 to, let's say, 9 o'clock, that's going to be your better chances where you're going to see some of the heavier rainfall tomorrow evening. Could affect the rush hour there in Richmond. We'll see. It might be able to get to the I-95 corridor by 5 or 6 o'clock. So that could be something just to be watch out for tomorrow. The severe weather getting to I-95 maybe around rush hour. So we'll have to see. Depends upon which model you believe. And then Saturday, you don't see nearly as much rainfall as accumulation because it's just going to be some quick passing storms. But some of those storms could be decent. They could pack a little bit of a punch there on Saturday. So we'll talk about the storm severity, but not much rain here on Saturday. So a couple waves, really mainly later this evening and tonight. And then I'd say late Friday afternoon, more like Friday evening into Friday night are our 2 waves of heavy rainfall. And this breaks down the chance of precipitation a little bit better. So again, you can kind of see here for Thursday, most folks stay pretty dry, probably until almost about 4 to 6 o'clock. And that's when the chances of rain increase. And they're really increased tonight by about 9 o'clock to midnight. So a lot of the heavier rain, if we do get heavier rain tonight, it's going to occur after rush hour. Even across Southeast Virginia, it's going to be an overnight rainfall event late this evening and tonight with the heavy rain. Not much chance of rain tomorrow morning, even through noon, not much of a chance of rain. But once we get to about 3 o'clock, and especially I'd say, 4 to 6 o'clock and later, those chances of rain really increase. And you really see the probability of thunder really starts to increase after 3 o'clock. It's going to peak somewhere between, I'd say, 6 and 9. The chance of thunderstorms is going to start to decrease pretty quickly after 9 o'clock, but you really see how the probability of thunder really is zeroing in on, I'd say, late tomorrow afternoon, really more into tomorrow evening and the early part of tomorrow night. And then for Saturday, just a lower chance of thunderstorms, but it's still there. And again, these could be pretty interesting storms here on Saturday. Quick hitters, but they could be severe. And in fact, you do notice the severe weather probability, at least the thunderstorm probability is higher on Saturday than it is for today. So Friday is probably our best day for severe weather, and we're going to have to watch out for the storms here Saturday afternoon as well. So breaking it down day by day, we already talked about the marginal risk for today. Not really too concerned about today. Mostly going to be a heavy rain threat. Maybe you get some gusty winds down here in the marginal risk area, but not overly concerned about today, other than maybe some breezy thunderstorms. This is what the radar might look like for today. So you kind of see here by this afternoon, maybe about 3 to 6 o'clock, those showers start to kind of come in from the west here and get to the I-95 corridor. But then you really see things blossom here between 10 o'clock tonight and about 1 o'clock in the morning, where you could see a lot of heavy rain kind of moving in from the south, moving to the northeast, from across northeast North Carolina, and then get into southeast Virginia. And then by tomorrow morning, as we get into 2 o'clock in the morning to rush hour, the showers should be pushing offshore. So this is kind of some of the high-res models, what that might look like, and I'll just do it just for tonight. And so this is kind of currently what we have here, 11 a.m. on Thursday. Again, you see all the heavy rain down there in Atlanta where it should be, in Georgia. Step this ahead in time. There are a few widely scattered showers you see there in the I-95 corridor by about 4 or 5 o'clock, and that kind of continues to push towards the bay. But you see this bigger area of showers and maybe even a rumble of thunder now starting to come across the North Carolina, South Carolina border by about 7 p.m. And that does push up into northeast North Carolina and southeast Virginia, somewhere between 10 p.m. and let's say about midnight to 2 a.m. And could be some decent rainfall in here. Could be kind of heavy at times, but it is happening tonight. So this is midnight, getting us into about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And then by the time you get into Friday morning, again, getting into about rush hour, this stuff should be kind of starting to pull off to the coast, maybe a few lingering showers here across Hampton Roads and maybe across the Eastern Shore. But the heavy stuff should be offshore by the time we get into rush hour. But some heavy rain really later tonight, I'd say after about 10 p.m. till about, let's say, 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm going to slide that aside because we'll use that again here in a few more minutes. Tomorrow is the bigger severe weather potential. We've kind of already talked about this quite a bit. Maybe wind gusts getting up to, let's say, 50 to even 65, potentially 70 miles per hour. Notice we're mentioning ping pong ball sized hail here potentially. So the hail could be getting a little bit bigger. Could even be getting up to golf ball sized hail. And again, this risk might extend a little bit further north and a little bit further east to the coast. So we're going to have to watch out for this. this risk could the slight risk could get a little bit bigger. And again, this kind of lays out the risk. Mostly going to be a damaging wind and large hail threat, but there is a 2% tornado threat kind of here over the southwestern part of our forecast area, mainly just west of Wakefield, out to Farmville, South Hill, out towards Carr Lake and Lake Gaston. Right now, this is kind of the area that the Storm Prediction Center has outlooked for potential tornadoes. Couldn't rule them out, but definitely I think damaging winds and hail is going to be the bigger threats as far as what we're expecting for tomorrow. I will go ahead and kind of show now what tomorrow might look like here in the model simulation. So this is Friday morning, 6 a.m. This is where we stopped a minute ago. As we move ahead in time, maybe just some widely scattered showers. Friday, not expecting a whole lot. This is noon on Friday, so pretty clear across the area. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit tighter now so we can kind of see what's going to happen across the region. As the day goes on, you do see these thunderstorms coming in from the west. This is 1 o'clock and then the 2 o'clock. And as we push through the day, you start to see these storms. They're pretty hefty storms, and they start to push into the I-95 corridor, maybe right around rush hour. And it could be more of a line of storms here, but you see it kind of reaching I-95 by about 6 p.m. And this is a pretty, it's a pretty good system coming through with a lot of thunderstorms. You don't lock in on exactly where these might be. You could see a lot more storms. It just gives you an idea of where that edge might be here at 6 p.m. on Friday. Some models are a little bit slower. I'll switch over to another high-res model here that shows more of a line of thunderstorms, maybe just to the west of I-95 at about 6 o'clock. This is another model here that may be just a hair slower, but it's showing more of a solid line of storms starting to push into the area tomorrow evening. So we'll see. As far as the exact timing of it, it's a little bit uncertain. But for right now, I would expect maybe a broken line of storms to reach I-95, potentially as early as rush hour tomorrow. And then this continues to kind of expand in area, maybe the storms make it a little bigger, and eventually pushes its way towards the coast. And even here at 8 o'clock in the evening, the storms are maybe just barely starting to get towards the western edge of the bay. And there could be some pretty good storms. Again, a lot of storms with some damaging winds and potential hail even into the evening. Again, some models are a little bit slower. So the slowest model here, I'll show this one. This one shows at 8 o'clock still west of I-95. I think that's too slow. I think if you have to average it out, I think it's going to be getting into the west side of the bay here, maybe by about, let's say, 8 o'clock or so. And then it's going to be moving pretty quickly. So this stuff's going to pass through. So that's why we're thinking it's really going to be maybe an I-95 corridor right at or just right around rush hour, give or take, and it should be getting close to the bay here by about, I'd say 8 p.m. or so as far as the timing of this. So stay tuned, but that is definitely our better day. You definitely saw a lot more coverage of thunderstorms here for tomorrow. So I do anticipate that we may be issuing a fair number of warnings tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. Saturday, it's not as much coverage for storms, but there's still that potential. And really the entire area is in this marginal risk of severe storms. Probably going to be more hailers. We got up to quarter-sized hail here and maybe some wind gusts to maybe, let's say, 45 to 60 miles per hour. Maybe some marginally severe wind, maybe just some strong wind. But I think the hail could be more of a problem because this is more of an upper-level driven system with cold air aloft that helps to produce hail. So this could be a little bit of a hail threat. And I'll kind of step through Saturday here, what that might look like. I have kind of switch over my displays to a different, it's still a high-res model, but allows me to get a little further out in time. So this is Saturday morning, could be a few passing showers across the area. Then we get a break in it as we get into the afternoon. But you see these storms developing here over parts of northern Virginia and central Virginia by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And you'll notice how these are actually moving from northwest to southeast, and they're going to race with the upper level winds kind of moving across the area. And notice how they kind of expand in coverage and they kind of drop southeast. So we're gonna have to watch this. This is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So outdoor events from Richmond, really the entire region. I'd say I-95 east, outdoor events on Saturday. We're going to have to watch this because this area could try to blossom with some upper level support. Could be a lot of lightning in these as well. And you kind of see how it reaches the Hampton Roads. This actually has it getting down there by about, see, that's It's about 5 p.m. or so. I'm getting into the Hampton Roads area, so we're going to have to kind of watch out for this, and then eventually pushes on offshore pretty quickly. So that's kind of the Saturday, what it looks like. Could it be a little bit further north, getting up here on the northern neck and the middle peninsula? It could. So be careful with the exact placement here, but you definitely get a sense that you're going to have some pretty good storms moving quickly northwest to southeast Saturday afternoon. And again, these will have lightning in them, and potentially I'd say hail and some gusty winds. So watch out for that. We say 12 to 7. I'd say it's probably going to be more like 2 to 7, and maybe 2 o'clock I-95, getting into about 5 to 7, maybe down here across Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina. So we're going to have to just kind of watch out for that Saturday. A lot of events. And this is, again, just showing another way to show the timing of thunderstorms here for Friday and Saturday. So again, after 3 o'clock, I got selected cities in here, but everybody's about the same. After about 3 o'clock, that probability of thunderstorms really shoots up tomorrow afternoon. It's going to peak everywhere. For most people, it's going to peak between, I'd say, 6 to about, let's say, 9 o'clock or even 10 o'clock at night. And then the chance of thunderstorms really decreases pretty quickly after about 10 o'clock. And then on Saturday, again, you get that bump up for most places, and higher in the east, a little bit lower in the west. Louisa, a little bit lower probability of thunderstorms, a little bit higher as you get further east. But again, it really doesn't kick in until after about 2 or 3 o'clock, and it doesn't peak until about, let's say about 5 or 6 o'clock, and lasts about maybe 8 o'clock, and then the chance kind of falls off pretty quickly. So kind of showing you the timing there of when we could see those thunderstorms for some less selected cities kind of spread out across the region here. Looking out beyond that, let me close that. Looking out beyond that, we are seasonably warm. I mean, today's not too bad, upper 70s. We got 80s tomorrow, so we're going to get nice and warm and humid ahead of those storms there for Friday. Pretty nice weekend in store as far as temperatures are concerned. Just have to watch those thunderstorms on Saturday. And again, you still get the chance of rain really again Thursday, Friday evening. And then again, a more targeted chance of showers and storms there Friday afternoon and Friday evening. Along the coast, we do have a moderate threat of rip currents today. So folks along the beaches there with the southeast kind of wave energy coming in, it is a moderate risk. But we do think the rip current risk is going to be lower come tomorrow, and that'll probably persist into Saturday as well as the winds kind of become more westerly. We don't expect to see too much rough surf or rip currents along the coast for the weekend. It may be breezy, but there shouldn't be any rip currents or rough surf for the weekend. So that's good news. Looking ahead to the next 8 to 14 days further out, does look like things are going to get quite warm maybe late next week. So we'll watch out for that. We could be talking, we're going to go from maybe below normal temperatures to potentially much above normal. So we'll see how that goes, but a pretty good signal. We're going to see some really warming conditions as we push through later next week. And precipitation is going to end up being probably near normal precipitation. The pattern might quiet down a little bit for us later next week with not as much rainfall. So we'll see how that plays out. Shifting into the marine conditions, there's a little bit to discuss here as well. We are expecting small craft advisory conditions really pretty much everywhere later on Friday and early Saturday. And there's a kind of a low probability here, medium probability of gale force wind gusts here at the mouth of the bay, maybe a little bit even coming down the bay. So we'll talk about that, where there's at least a medium probable chance that we could see some gale conditions. And we'll get into that. Breaking it down day by day. Today, no real threat on the marine side of the house. You start getting into Friday night. The areas in orange represent those small craft advisory conditions, really pretty much across the entire bay and parts of the coastal waters. And that does linger into Saturday morning especially. But the winds do die down as we get into Sunday and Sunday night. So you see the area in orange really has shrunk quite a bit. So really not expecting small craft advisories by the time we get into Sunday. And Monday, it looks like the winds will be very calm with high pressure coming down across us, so not as much of an issue. So kind of breaking down the peak winds here, probably going to see about 28, maybe getting up to even 30 knots or so in some places here as the northwest and west winds kick in later on Friday and Friday night. Kind of see that right in here. We're pretty good shape until I'd say later on Friday, and those southwest to west winds really pick up after about, I'd say 6 to 9 o'clock. And early Saturday morning, it's going to be pretty windy, and things are going to be kicked up out there because you're just going to have been blowing all night long. So even going to see some good westerly winds up around 20 knots, 20 or so through a good bit of the day. And even until a little bit of Sunday, the winds become northwest, and they really don't start to decrease until Sunday afternoon into Monday. So little bit of a windy period here with the west wind over the beginning part of the weekend. This is our low probability of gales. This is just one of the ways we can look at things. And so the area here that's highlighted in orange, a lot of traffic in and out here at the mouth of the bay. We're not expecting gale conditions, and I would not anticipate gale watches or warnings. We'll probably have small craft advisories. But you can see the probabilities here in red. There's almost about a 30 to 35% chance of gale force wind gusts there at the mouth of the bay. And it's really from about, I'd say, midnight until about, let's say, 6 a.m. there on Saturday. So that tells us that about a third of the models are predicting some gale force wind gusts there at the mouth of the bay. So it's going to be a really strong small craft advisory with maybe a few gusts up to 30 to, let's say, 34 knots at the mouth of the bay. And the strongest winds you see there really get narrowed down to about maybe 11 p.m. Friday night till about maybe 6 a.m. Saturday is kind of the timing there of the strongest winds there coming out the mouth of the bay. And that'll be true too for winds even across the entire bay and right along the coast. That's kind of the timing of those peak winds right behind that cold front when the colder air just kind of surges in kind of pretty quickly. I don't want to go through the whole table here, but this is what was sent out in the briefing. So the sustained winds there, again, really increasing late tonight and persisting through Saturday. Same thing with the wind gusts kind of peaking out. It's going to be late Friday night, persisting through Saturday here. And the winds really do start to come down Sunday. Again, this is where you can actually see Sunday afternoon. So the south winds really start to decrease down to about 10 knots, gusts to maybe 10 to 15 at the worst. And those pretty nice marine conditions extend into Monday. So just got to get through this windy period with those two cold fronts passing through here late Friday night and really into Saturday and late Saturday night. Just looking at the wave conditions, obviously I won't belabor this. The waves are going to pick up on the bay with those westerly winds, especially as we get into tomorrow night. They'll persist into Saturday. It's going to take a while for the waves to come down here across the bay and the coastal waters. It will be an offshore flow, so it'll be a little bit calmer near shore, offshore, but still going to be a pretty good west wind. So seas generally around 4 to 5 feet and waves on the bay about 3 to 4 feet for the most part. And that's all we've got for this briefing.